I never was very satisfied with the format, you would call it. In other words, if you've seen often a head and the neck, and then there's a wooden base of some kind or a stone base, that's called a format. And I thought that sort of made the pieces more invisible or made it hard to have a difference because the format was so strong. In other words, they were so similar in the format that I was dissatisfied with that as I was doing them. So I thought a lot about many different ways for these heads to be made. Most people look at this, they have no idea that's what this is. It's, why are they on these sticks, you know? But it comes out of the process of making these things and trying to. It's still trying to make more intense the actual head. It's not. I mean, it's still the most important. Me trying to get the character or the quality of the sitter or the person who is sitting for them, or at the same time, it's telling the story of the kind of decay or growing or of the piece itself, the life of the piece itself, and the different materials, how to see them as a form. Because if you're a sculptor, you're kind of looking at form all the time, and you're trying to just see it, you know, in all different materials or manifestation. Yeah. Now, these are a different thing. I was thinking a lot at one point about how strange it is that you can take a head like this and put it on a base, and it seems like a very pacific image, but it's actually a very violent. I mean, the idea of a head without the body it has a violent implication. There's a removed head. But as you see them in sculptures and busts of, the president of the college or whatever, they don't look like that. The violence by custom, because they've been made that way so long, it's sort of removed the implication. And so I started to look at these things, and I had come across a photograph of kind of a horrific photograph of a Turkish officer in a little room during the Armenian massacre around the First World War, when they massacred 1 million Armenians, and they still are discussing it. And he has this sitting at a desk in a room, this officer, and a shelf behind him are a bunch of human heads sitting. Wow. It's a very terrifying image, and I thought how powerful that image of a head is compared to, then you really see what a head by itself is. So I made a little series of things like this, and this is sort of my own idea of a piece. It's doing several things. One of the things is I'm very interested in relief, bas relief. And so I like the fact that there's not a separate category between sculpture in the round and bas relief, but it's more of a continuum, and things gradually go between full round sculptures and very flat reliefs, but then there are all the kind of gradual variations in between. So I wanted to make this piece sort of partly like relief here and dimensional in the depth.
That's cool.
So at the same time, I was sort of I was making some little tiny wooden versions of these armature pieces. But I started to do that, but then I just kind of liked the drawing of it. It was like the scheme of one of those armatures on there, but I thought just the drawing looked okay. And it was very hard wood anyway, so I didn't want to... it was a fight to get through some kind of exotic wood. So anyway, that's what those are. Some of these other pieces are just carvings I do. Again, they're imaginary heads. I've done many of these. These three are these imaginary heads that I made. They're partly lots of bits of memory of heads I've both made or just looked at. I just like that format where I made the base as a part of the sculpture, as if they were not a separate material.